On Friday, February 25th, 2005, a 59-year-old man was pulled over in Park City, Kansas. After evading the law for over 30 years, he was arrested for viciously attacking and taking the lives of at least 10 people in the Wichita area. So, how after decades of terrifying and taunting the public was he finally caught? Thinking he was untouchable, he asked the cops a question. Can you trace a floppy disk? Satisfied with their answer, he mailed them one from his church. This, as he would soon find out, would give the cops all that they needed to nail him. The man was Dennis Rader, or BTK, and that's when he learned that police could lie. It might be hard to believe, but that isn't the only buffoonery that BTK got up to. The floppy disk is really just the tip of the iceberg. Let's laugh at a serial killer and see why he belongs in a catalog, if you will, of dumb criminals. So before I get ahead of myself, I'm not going to be covering the entire Dennis Rader story, just enough to give context to the bits that I think are funny. So anyway, with that out of the way. From 1974 to 1991, the people of Wichita, Kansas were terrorized by a man that they only knew as BTK. If you didn't know, stands for Bind, Torture, Kill. He also went by BTK Killer or BTK Strangler, if that matters to you. This was the moniker of Dennis Lynn Rader, who was, give me a second, to put it simply, a murderous sexual deviant that had an obsessive desire for notoriety. Say that one 3 times fast. Born March 9th, 1945 in Pittsburgh, Kansas, Rader grew up in an uninteresting home with a largely uninteresting upbringing. He grew up in a normal Christian household, had 4 other brothers, and absent but strict parents that were working all the time. When his parents were home, they may have noticed that something wasn't quite right with Dennis. In his youth, he would draw women bound and clearly in distress, and would fantasize about hurting women that were, as he put, trapped and helpless. In his free time as a kid, he would catch and torment small animals for entertainment. This, of course, was of little consequence at the time.
Oh, look there, Dennis is tying up squirrels again. Ah, that boy sure is a fast one. He may play for the Yanks one of these days.
Back in the 50s, when Dennis was a kid, they didn't really have the same understanding of psychology that we do now, in a broad sense. Nor did they understand that these were the signs of future homicidal maniac. As Rader aged, he did become a fervent stalker of women. He would steal women's clothes, put them on, and then stalk the women in their clothes. This is as good a time as any to mention that Rader also had an autoerotic asphyxiation fetish. Did I read that right? Autoerotic asphyxiation fetish. Which, for the innocents among us, is when you decide that you like not breathing and your dangly noodly bits get excited from it. Allow me to set a scene, if you will. You're a 20-something-year-old woman. You decide to go for a walk to get those glutes in shape. You gotta show Jess up at the roller rink. You swear your dryer ate your bra because you just can't find it anywhere. Whatever, you have others. It's just annoying because they're not cheap. You then walk out of your home to find a greasy, balding man hanging from the tree in your front yard. You inspect the man. He's dead. But wait a minute. You also notice that he's wearing your bra on the outside of his shirt. Not only that, but he's using your purple pantyhose as a noose. That monster stole your pantyhose and you had no idea. Thank God he's dead now though. You have some glutes to whip into shape. And scene. In addition to stealing clothes and parading around in them, Rader would also make scrapbooks of the women that he was stalking at the time. He would sketch the women, take pictures of them without them knowing, and put their stolen clothes together for his own collection of each woman. Rader called these women his PJs, or his projects. This is the first of many times where you're going to find that Rader thinks he's clever, and it's really kind of annoying. Just know that it gets worse from here. If you think that someone that spends so much time stalking women would be easy to spot in a crowd, ordinarily you'd be right. Rader was kind of an exception though. See, he, for the most part, was pretty adept at hiding his perversions from the rest of the world around him. Here I'm going to quickly mention that in 1971, he was married to Paula Dietz, who, until the day he was arrested, she had no idea of who he really was. In fact, Rader would later coin the term, why did I word it like Rader would later? Am I having a laugh? In fact, later on, Rader would coin the term cubing, which is the ability to easily switch public faces and personalities, like rotating a cube. Paula Dietz, as well as their 2 kids, only saw the fatherly side of Rader's cube. Around November of 1973, Rader was working at a Coleman manufacturing plant where he had become obsessed with Julie Otero, who worked at the same location. Rader had stalked the family, memorized their schedule, and had also become infatuated with Julie's 11-year-old daughter. On January 15th, 1974, after spending months stalking the family, Rader would make his first attack. Rader would break into the Otero home. When he forced his way in, he claimed that he was a wanted man from California. He also claimed that he had a gun and he was going to rob them, which is why they needed to be tied up. He says that he did this to try to avoid a panic among the family members, but I think the idea of a man forcing his way into your house and then claiming that he's going to rob you at gunpoint isn't exactly the most calming of situations, even if it's better than him outright stating that he's going to kill you, but whatever. Once bound, the family complained that the ropes were too tight and that they were uncomfortable. So, for some reason, Rader decided to be a nice guy and loosen the restraints for them. Just a little bit so they're not quite as uncomfortable. I'll also mention here that before this incident, Joseph Otero Sr. had cracked a rib in a car accident. So, of course, while he was bound, he complained that his rib was hurting him. So Rader gave him a pillow to try to help with that.
Well, they started complaining about being tied up, and I re-loosened the bonds a couple of times. Tried to make Mr. Otero as comfortable as I could. Currently had a cracked rib from a car accident, so I had him put a pillow down for his head. Had he put I think he Parker or a coat underneath him.
After spending who knows how long making the family comfortable and helping Joseph with his rib, he would then take their lives. Once he was satisfied, Rader booked it out of the house. It was then that he remembered that he left his knife in the backyard. Rader then had to do a little dopey run back to the house to retrieve his knife that he forgot. Not long after the Otero incident, Rader had already set his sights on another co-worker named Catherine Bright. On April 4th, 1974, Rader broke into Bright's home through a sliding glass door and found that Catherine wasn't home yet. So, naturally, while waiting for Catherine, he politely swept up the glass from the broken door. A short while later, he heard the front door open. Rader was ready to strike until he found that Catherine's older brother, 19-year-old Kevin Bright, was with her at the time. Rader then held both of them at gunpoint. This time, Rader forgot to bring any of his usual restraints, so, like the clown he is, he found some bandanas in the home, tied them end to end, forced Kevin to tie Catherine up, and then tied Kevin up in a different room of the home. Rader then turned the Bright stereo system on at max volume, and then went to go end Kevin's life. Fortunately, Kevin had wiggled free from his bandana cuffs, and lunged at Rader as soon as he entered the room. Rader then took aim at Kevin and shot twice. Kevin was hit twice by Rader's shots, once in the head and once on his body. After this, Kevin played dead until Rader left the room, after which, he ran down the street yelling for help. Rader of course noticed this and heard him yelling from outside, so he hurriedly returned to Catherine. He quickly attacked Catherine with a knife, and then stole some keys and ran to Catherine's car. Rader couldn't get the car to start because he just grabbed a handful of keys and didn't know which key was the right one for the car. So he couldn't get the car to start, he ran back to his car that was a few blocks away. Kevin would survive the attack, but Catherine would not. In his confession, Rader smugly notes that,
If I brought my own things, Kevin would have died that day. It's not bragging, it's just the truth.
Kevin would go on to give the police a description of the attacker. A man wearing a stocking cap, may have had dark hair, may have had facial hair. A composite sketch was made and distributed, but this unfortunately didn't lead anywhere. I don't want to pick on the sketch artist too much because I know that's kind of a hard job to do with vague descriptions, but I really love how composite sketches like this are always just so uncanny. I feel like it's easier just to make someone up in your head than it would be to, have a face to draw. I guess I don't know because it's not the profession that I'm in, but they're always scary looking for no reason. I love police sketches. They're so freaky. In October of 1974, the Wichita Eagle newspaper received a tip from an anonymous caller about a letter in an engineering textbook at a library in Wichita. After using my impressive reasoning skills, I have boldly concluded that Rader was likely the one that made this anonymous call. Funny enough, there isn't any official confirmation that he was the one that made this call. A signature of Rader's was taunting the police and victims' families with letters, notes, and poems that he would hide around the area. His goal wasn't to actually hide the messages, it was so he could blush and giggle like a schoolgirl when they were found and made the news. So, kind of annoying. Take a sip of my Mountain Dew. I have a problem where I need to have at least 3 drinks on me at all times. Is it ADHD? I don't know. Is it a problem? I'm also going to drink a little bit of my water. Does that make you happy? Does that make you happy seeing me do that? I'm going to be a little mean to Rader's English skills here, because the poems and the letters that he wrote were just an abortion of the English language. They're full of misspellings or grammatical errors that make him out to either be stoned or a caveman. Now, Rader could have been going 420 Cro-Magnon on these on purpose, and that would make sense if he was trying to throw the police off his trail, but that's no fun, and I prefer to think that he's just a poor wordsmith. I can't imagine that police would be able to find a man based on whether or not he uses an Oxford comma, but anyway. In the letter, he goes into detail about the Otero attack. He goes into excessive detail about where the bodies are, where things are in the house, and how things are laid out. Rader also says that, Hey, what are you doing? I have a friend now. He gives me strength. He also says that the police have the wrong dudes in custody, and that he's going to be the one to set the record straight. Floyd Hannon, the then chief of police, said that the writer of the letter would have had to be inside the house when the crime was committed, or participated in the crime. I do think it was funny that Rader was so worried about someone else taking credit for his work, and he was like, "No, I will take credit for my work. I will not stand for such transgressions. It was my handiwork and my load." Further along in this letter, Rader also writes that there is a monster in his head. At a later point, Rader would also blame Factor X, and at another point, demons, which all kind of betrays his MO of wanting to be credited for his work, but maybe he was to get off with insanity or something, even though insanity doesn't work the way that everyone thinks it does. If you're familiar with true crime, you know that this is just a common tactic that some of them use to just shift the blame onto something else. Going back to the letter one more time, Rader clearly wanted control over his boogeyman name. He wrote, "The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them. BTK. You see B added again. They will be on the next victim." I guess I didn't need to spell out what BTK stands for, my bad. Rader's kind of all over the place in that he wants credit for his work, and that he also is kind of shifting the blame onto demons or something. I'll actually leave a link to the Wichita Eagle site that has more from the letter if you want to read more about it. Starting in 1974, Rader would work 14 years at ADT, installing security systems in the area. Ironically, many of these people wanted security systems because of the murders in the area. And once again, please imagine Rader kicking his feet in the air, giggling like a schoolgirl, and blushing. His time at ADT isn't like incredibly important to the plot, but there are a few things that I want to note here. For example, amongst his co-workers, he doesn't seem to have been a beloved figure. Testimonies from his peers seem to range a little bit in tone. Some people say that he was a totally normal dude. Some people say that he was a little off-putting, but they didn't think anything of it. Some people said that he was a little arrogant and standoffish. And some people even claimed to get a case of the heebie-jeebies from him. Ron Sparkman, a co-worker of Rader's at ADT, said that he wasn't the kind of guy you wanted to get a beer with after work. That's cold, Sparkman. 3 years after the murder of Catherine Bright, Rader took the lives of 2 more women, Shirley Vianne Relford and Nancy Fox. What's interesting about Shirley's case is that Rader had not intended to kill her specifically on that night. See, he had his sights set on a different woman in the neighborhood, someone that he codenamed Project Green. This changed when the woman was away from home for so long that Rader became frustrated. So on March 17th, 1977, while waiting for Project Green, Rader spotted a young boy walking around the block. It was then that he decided to hatch a new plan altogether. Rader approached the boy and convinced him that he was a detective. Rader showed the young boy a picture with his wife and daughter to gain the boy's trust. Convinced that Rader was who he said he was, the young boy headed back to his home, with Rader following close behind. Shirley let her son into the home. Then Rader approached the door and knocked. When Shirley opened the door, Rader pulled a gun, then claimed that he was a wanted man and forced his way into the home. In his typical fashion, Rader tried to tie up the 3 children, but found it too difficult. This fully grown man couldn't get a handle on the 3 screaming and crying children, so he forced Shirley to help him barricade them into the bathroom, after which he taped shut for good measure. So to tie it back to Rader's twisted morals from earlier, he wanted to make the children as comfortable as possible in the bathroom, while they surely knew that he was attacking their mother. As Rader puts it, he
Put some toys and some blankets and stuff in there for them. Books. Going to make them comfortable because I told them, you guys stay in here. I think one of them told me I was going to break out, and I said, I don't think you want to. I'll shoot you. Or blow your head off. Or something like that. And they were upset.
I wonder why the kids were upset. It's kind of strange, isn't it? This dude has 2 kids. How did he get through that? Whatever. Rader would then take Shirley to a bedroom in the home where he would end her life. Just as Rader was heading back to end the lives of the children, the house phone began to ring. The oldest child, still locked in the bathroom, then began to yell that the caller was someone that they knew and that they were going to be dropping by very soon. This clever tactic worked, and Rader then fled the scene, leaving the children alive. I love this part because it shows how skittish Rader actually was. Rader liked to present this cold, stoic personality, but he had his plans ruined by 3 children who were locked in a bathroom. Rader's next victim was a woman named Nancy Jo Fox, which he, of course, stalked and spied on over some time. He codenamed her Project Fox Hunt, so, I'm sure he was real smug about that. Rader broke into Nancy Jo's home, subdued her, handcuffed her, and Rader began to, non-consensually partake in activities with her. During this, Rader whispered that he's BTK, and that he's a bad guy. I feel like we're a little bit past that, but alright. Upon hearing him whisper this, she began to fight harder. According to Rader in a testimony, Nancy Jo began... Let me bust out the glasses again. Nancy Jo responded to the name drop by grabbing, squeezing, and ferociously twisting Rader's little secret sausage in a brutal act of rebellion. And for this, We stan Nancy Jo. Despite fighting her best fight, Rader would take Nancy Jo Fox's life. The following day, Rader would use a payphone to call the police and let them know that Nancy Jo Fox's body would be found in her home. There isn't anything super comedic here, but I did want to bring to light that Nancy Jo Fox gave Rader a heck of a bop it session downstairs. Did you know that a group of owls is called a parliament? Wow. Hello, I'm back. It's a different day. I'm wearing different clothes. I'm cleaner now. Gotta make sure that I'm ready for anything, so I have not 1, but 2, and 3, and 4 different beverages. Don't tempt me or I'll get another one. Alright, where were we? On February 10th, 1978, Rader sent a 2-page letter to a TV station in Wichita, KAKE, in which he took credit for the killings, berated the media for not focusing on BTK enough, blamed his bloodlust on the Factor X I mentioned earlier, and asked the police to send a message showing that they had read the letter as well. He wrote,
"How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?"
He even suggested a few different monikers, such as the Poetic Strangler and the Wichita Strangler, even though in the first letter he wanted to be known as BTK, but whatever, dude. Also, a quick note, he wanted to be known as the Poetic Strangler because he wrote poems about his victims and he saw himself as having a artistic soul. I think this level of cringe actually violates Geneva Conventions. He actually left a poem about Nancy Jo Fox with the letter. The police did end up getting Rader's message, but the way that they showed that they did was, in my opinion, a little obtuse. On KAKE, during a normal program, they quickly flashed a frame of an ominous drawing of a pair of upside-down glasses with the phrase, "Now call the chief." The glasses were supposed to resemble the pair of glasses found at the scene of Nancy Jo Fox's murder. Of course, this tactic didn't work. Rader didn't turn himself in, but he did get the message that they had seen his message. This isn't the only strange tactic that police employed at the time to catch BTK, and there are others that I would love to cover those someday because there's a whole bunch of wacky ones out there. Just to paint a clearer picture of Rader at the time, in the 70s and 80s he was beginning to get more involved with Boy Scouts with his son. Another Boy Scout leader had this to say about Rader. "He took part in everything that we did in scouting him with his son, which was very important in the Cub Scouting as you do with your boys. And so I consider him to be a very good parent and a very good scout leader. At that time, of course." So I love this next bit and I hope you do too. Rader had his heart set on attacking a woman named Anna Williams. So per Rader tradition at this point, he broke into her home, cut her phone lines, and awaited her return from her night out of square dancing with her friends. Rader at this time was, self-admittedly, obsessed with Anna, and was absolutely livid when she didn't get back on time. To retaliate against her, he stole some of her jewelry and then left. I like picturing myself having a banger night with the boys, and then getting back, finding out that my phone doesn't work, that my silver necklace from Kohl's is gone, and my thong from college has gone missing. Which of course I don't wear anymore, I just noticed its absence. Later in 1979, Rader wanted to show off his poetic side once again by writing Anna a letter entitled, "Oh Anna, why didn't you appear?" Feel free to pause the video, because I'm not going to read it out loud. That would probably activate something, like the Necronomicon, and I don't want that on me right now. For a few years, Rader seemed to take a break from his violent behaviors. In spring of 1985, he earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Wichita State University. It's crazy to think that he just mingled with the students and professors at the time, and no one had any idea of who he was. I do like to think that he was still kind of a freak, and it came through. Maybe he even did an essay on BTK, like Peter Parker, selling pictures of Spider-Man. "Well, Dennis, how are you able to so accurately put yourself into the mind of a madman? Your attention to detail is remarkable." "Well, I know a guy. That's all there is to it." Yes, well, alrighty then. Good work. 1985 also marked the return of BTK activity in the area. Rader would attack 3 more times between 1985 and 1991. Maureen Hedge in 1985, Vicky Vergely in 1986, and Dolores Davis in 1991 would all tragically lose their lives to BTK. The murders were of typical BTK fashion. Cut the phone lines, break in, await their return, and then attack. Rader must have been more comfortable with attacking at this point in time, because there isn't much that fits the topic of this video. In May of 1991, Rader was hired as a compliance officer in Park City, Kansas. His duties included dressing up like a Boy Scout, dog catching, checking the appearance of people's yards, and bullying the people of the neighborhood. He would go around to people's lawns with a ruler to check the height of their grass, and would be super mean to homeowners who didn't have their dog on a leash. One time he even had a dog euthanized over an argument that he had with a homeowner. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the gun that he carried with him while on duty. Imagine this middle-aged man rolling up to your house with a shotgun, a ruler, and a short temper. So yeah, you bet your sweet cheeks that people's lawns were immaculate at the time. Despite being essentially an HOA terrorist, Rader had gotten bored of not killing people. In 2004, Wichita TV aired a segment marking the 30th anniversary of the BTK's first attack. The program openly mocked BTK, essentially calling him a has-been serial killer, making sure to state that the many locals had forgotten about the killer and his crimes. In fact, many people thought that the BTK killer was dead at this point, or that he was arrested and they just missed the news. Rader, having seen this, couldn't stand the idea of being forgotten. Not when he believed himself to be a master tactician, and oh so clever. What are you doing? You're knocking him over, aren't you? Oh by God, you didn't do it. Rader didn't want to be forgotten, especially after all the letters and notes that he left for people, after all the poems he had written about the victims. No, he wouldn't stand for that. What Rader didn't know is that the program was actually made in tandem with the police to make Rader a little angry. So naturally, Rader resumed sending his pretentious clues and letters around. The messages he began sending again were full of evidence from his past crimes, such as photos and driver's licenses of the victims, letting everyone know that he was still out there. These letters were signed by Bill Thomas Killman, which is some Hideo Kojima-ass name, if I've ever heard one. One of the stashes he set up was in the Wichita library, in similar fashion to the letter that he sent 30 years ago. And funny enough, this letter went unnoticed for much longer than Rader had anticipated. Neither the police or the Wichita library were notified that the letter was even there, so they just didn't bother looking for it. So it just collected dust on the library shelves for who knows how long. In one message, he sent a proposed table of contents for a book called The BTK Story, and great balls of fire, dude, please stop, I'm begging you. In my official dumb curator opinion, this next taunt that he had was his third dumbest attempt at a taunt. What he did is he put a cereal box containing a voodoo Barbie in the bed of a random man's pickup at Home Depot. So then the man saw the cereal box in the back of his truck and he threw it away. Not a second thought about it. At a later point in time, Rader did ask about what happened to the cereal box, in which he was told that it was just thrown away and found in the garbage. His second dumbest attempt at a taunt is when he put a Toasties cereal box into a ditch. Not only was it just a Toasties box, he had written the word bomb on it. But once opened, the box just had some more IDs and another doll, so no bomb was actually found within the box. After sending the public into a frenzy again, Rader planned another PJ that he planned to take out in October of 2004. Thankfully though, Rader would never get the chance to attack, and he would never take a life again. Rader's shenanigans all came to a stop in February of 2005, when he took a gamble and made the police swear on their mother's grave that they wouldn't lie. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Rader's crowning achievement, his number one, in my opinion, dumbest attempt to mock the police. Remember the intro? Sure you do. Rader sent a note to Wichita Police Lieutenant Ken Landwehr, specifically asking if a floppy disk can be traced back to him. The message read, "Can I communicate with floppy disk and not be traced to a computer? Be honest." Be honest is so good. It's like a kid asking if Santa's real. I also do love that Rader was down to try something new and with the times, but he just didn't know about metadata. So the police replied in a newspaper saying, "Rex, it will be okay." So he essentially took this to say, yes, we have no idea how to track you with a floppy disk. There is simply no possible way to do it. We promise it'll be okay. I think they're off to go get him now. When the police received the purple floppy disk, they found the file labeled testa.rtf, sometimes referred to as the BTK Communique online. This file contained his usual taunts and messages about previous killings, but the file had something more interesting than new evidence. The metadata on the floppy disk was traced to the Christ Lutheran Church, and the file was created by a user named Dennis. This, of course, was the church that Dennis not only went to, but was president of the congregation. This man was crafting taunts on a church computer, which ultimately resulted in his capture. And this genuinely seems like some divine intervention. On February 25th, 2005, Rader would be pulled over in his car, not too far from his home. When asked if he knew why he was being pulled over, he sheepishly smirked and replied,
"Oh, I have suspicions why."
And this is the part that we find out that Ken broke Rader's little heart. While talking with Ken Landwehr, Rader asked,
"I need to ask you, kid, how come you lied to me?"
Ken replied simply, "Because I was trying to catch you." It reminds me of that scene in Breaking Bad where it's like, "Dude, a cop can't lie to you. If you ask a cop if he's a cop, he has to tell you. It's in the Constitution." The ATF and the FBI searched Rader's... Whoa. My mouth is so dry. My mouth is very dry. Drink water. You know, with all these drinks, you'd figure that my mouth would be a bit more lubricated, but here we are. Stop. The ATF and FBI searched Rader's property, finding complete and conclusive evidence that he was BTK. In their search, they found things like journals describing his crimes, drawings and photographs of women bound and gagged, and Polaroid pictures of Rader wearing the victim's clothes. Before I get ahead of myself, there are so many aspects to the story that I actually forgot something that's kind of important. Rader not only had all this evidence at home, but he also had little stashes of evidence hidden around the town, and he called them his hidey holes. And I'm not really sure why he had these hidey holes. I guess in case he needed to take a hit from his evidence stashes while he was away, I have no idea. I'm going to show you a couple of these pictures. None of the, obviously, the illicit substances, but mainly just of the pictures that Rader took of himself. And I'm gonna warn you, they're genuinely haunting to look at. In these pictures, Rader was in a variety of poses, such as being tied up in a better chair, hanging up by rope in a tree, or lying partially buried in a shallow dirt grave. He called these photos his fantasy enactments. And I was really hoping that when I found these photos, it would just be goofy like I kind of described earlier. But when I found them, they're kind of just the worst. I really didn't account for any masks that he would be wearing, because, my goodness. We're just about done, and I won't cry. I told Mom that I'm a big boy now and I don't cry when I see scary things. Not to be like some terminally online 14-year-old, but these pictures do kind of remind me of those like creepypasta Mickey in the basement pictures. I don't know if it's just the low resolution, the weird kind of lighting on them, but these pictures really do a good job of kind of instilling that fear that the actual photos from Rader do. It's kind of impressive. Anyway, the morning after Rader's arrest, Police Chief Norman Williams came out with a final statement for the public.
The bottom line, BTK is arrested.
Rader would waive a trial, instead of opting to a full confession in court. Now, as we've already seen a little bit, watching Rader in court is a little strange. When he talks about killing, he just kind of seems to be nonchalant and not really there. Not at all what you would expect from a man confessing to multiple killings. Although in my personal opinion, I think he was trying to take control of his emotions and his actions, because he had built up this persona of being a mastermind over the course of 30 plus years, and I don't think he wanted to let that falter now in court. But with that said, I found this really good clip of him like twiddling his fingers really fast and swishing water in his mouth at like just an abnormal pace. I have no idea when the footage is from. I just like it because I've never seen such ferocious water swishing. Rader confessed to 10 murders, was found guilty, and was ordered to serve 10 consecutive life sentences. This was because the death sentence was not legal yet in Kansas. His confessions in the trial are all pretty easily found online, so if you want to go find more, you don't have to look too hard. After he was found guilty, his cool and uncaring demeanor seemed to slip a little bit when he was talking about his new living conditions. See, Rader may not have been ready to actually accept a life sentence because he kept asking about living conditions in the prison and also what accommodations there would be for him. And here's a quote that shows just that.
Now, are they going to... Am I going to be in a special section of the jail, or am I going to be thrown in with a bunch of the loadies?
And a quick side tangent, I don't know if you know this, but in some prisons there is a little bit of frontier justice within those prison walls. See, the average prisoner doesn't really take too kindly to people hurting kids, and Rader had done just that once or twice in his day. I can't find anything concrete if he was bludgeoned half to death with a sock full of butter, but I do feel a little bit better thinking that he was at least once or twice. Anyway, in an interview with psychologist Robert Mendoza, you can see a bit more of Rader's emotions creep out. Watch his smile when he talks about himself, even though he's donning a bright red jumpsuit.
I am BTK. Yeah, I'm the guy they're after, 100%.
I guess, in a way, he kind of got what he wanted with his notoriety, because Rader said this to Robert Mendoza about being caught.
How you feeling? I really feel pretty good. It's kind of like a big burden that was lifted off my shoulders. And on the other hand, I feel like I'm kind of like a star right now.
When he was charged, his wife Paula split almost immediately and divorced him. Good on ya, Paula. And to finish it off, Rader is still currently imprisoned at the age of 79, and he will be eligible for parole by the age of 235 in 2180. So best tell your youngins to be diligent when that time comes, because I know that I will. He still writes, practices poetry, and draws. He even began drafting a memoir and sketched some fan art of himself, and these were promptly taken by the guards. And even while incarcerated, Rader has brought up fears that his poems and his work would be lost to time. And I'm sure a lot of these drawings, poems, and sketchbooks or whatever are in an evidence locker somewhere, or even in an exhibit. So it kind of sucks that, again, he's getting what he wants here. So all in all, Rader's ultimate downfall was because of his big ego and his little brain. He thought he was so clever with his crimes, but in the end, he's still in prison where his only friend is a journal. If he wasn't such a big narcissist, he actually might have gotten away with some of the things that he had done. But thank goodness he was just a big dumb idiot like he was. Now, if you'll allow me to get preachy for a second, I think it's important to remember that the families that were victims of Raiders are people outside of his story. I think simplifying them to being just BTK's victims is almost possessive in a way that I'm not really comfortable giving to Rader. So whenever you or someone you know hears a story like this, try to see the victims as people and not just as numbers or names in a list of victims. And that's it. That's my soapbox. Thank you for coming. So that about does it for Dennis Rader in terms of this video. I still hope that despite the heavier subject matter, you were able to have a good time and laugh at Rader with me, because I think his story is so ridiculous. You don't usually see it covered like this in the bigger documentaries. So if you think that I didn't go in depth enough and kind of paint a picture about his crimes, please let me know in the comments. I really appreciate any kind of criticism. Be sure to give a like if you liked the video and a dislike if you disliked it. That's okay. If there's something that you want me to cover in the future, please let me know in the comments. That would be awesome. If you want to see videos kind of in the similar Dumb Criminal saga that I kind of have planned right now, toss a subscription. That way you can be up to date and in the know for another 6 months when I drop another video. So once again, thank you very much for watching. I sincerely appreciate the time that you spent with me here. Take care.